The Hall of Extinct Species was always quiet. No one shouted there. No one laughed too loudly. Even the young students lowered their voices when they walked under the silver lights and saw the frozen faces of dead civilizations. Guide Varric liked that silence. He had worked in the Grand Museum of Galactic Memory for 32 years. He knew every exhibit, every date, every official story. But the human section was always the one that made visitors stop the longest. It stood at the center of the hall. A tall glass chamber held a reconstructed human soldier in dark armor. Beside it were broken tools, burned flags, and small pieces of metal from old Earth ships. Above the display, golden letters floated in the air. Humanity, the violent species that destroyed itself. Varric began the tour like he had done 1,000 times. 50,000 years ago, he said gently. Humans rose from a small blue world called Earth. They were clever, but unstable. Brave, but dangerous. They built weapons faster than wisdom. In the end, their own wars erased them. The children stared through the glass. One young student raised her hand. Her name tag read Sella. If humans destroyed themselves, she asked, why do we still fear them? The question made the room colder. Varric paused. Teachers shifted nervously. A museum guard looked up from the doorway. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Varric smiled, but it felt forced. We do not fear them, he said. We remember them as a warning. Sella looked back at the frozen human soldier. But his eyes don't look violent, she whispered. They look sad. Before Varric could answer, every light in the museum flickered. The glass chamber began to hum. Then the floating letters above the human exhibit vanished. A new message appeared. Unknown human signal detected. And outside the museum, across the capital sky, thousands of black ships came out of empty space. At first, no one screamed. The shock was too heavy for sound. Varric stood frozen beneath a dead human exhibit, watching the emergency screens open across the museum walls. They showed the capital sky from every angle. Black ships hung above the city like pieces of night. They did not move. They did not fire. They simply waited. Then the alarms began. Children cried. Teachers pulled them away from the glass chambers. Guards shouted orders, but their voices broke. Every species in the hall had grown up hearing the same warning. If humans ever returned, the galaxy would burn. Sella did not run. She kept staring at the human soldier inside the chamber. Guide Varric, she said softly. Why does the armor look like theirs? Varric looked at the screen again. His stomach tightened. The ships above the city carried the same symbol as the broken flag inside the exhibit. A white circle, a small blue world. 3 thin lines around it like an orbit. The museum had always called it a war mark. But now, seeing it on those silent ships, Varric was no longer sure. A transmission request appeared on every device in the building. Source: Human Fleet Message Type. Historical correction. The words made no sense. Not invasion order. Not surrender demand. Not threat. Historical correction. The museum director, an old Talarian named Osric, pushed through the crowd. His face was pale. Shut it down, he ordered. Block the signal. The guards tried. Nothing happened. Every screen in the hall turned black. Then an image appeared. It showed Earth, blue and bright, untouched by fire. Around it floated ships from many alien races. Then came a calm human voice. We are not here to punish your children for the lies of your ancestors. Varric felt his legs weaken. The voice continued. We are here because your galaxy was taught to fear the wrong species. Della whispered. Then what really happened? The human exhibit opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the frozen soldier's helmet lights turned on. The museum guards aimed their shock rifles at the glass chamber. No one moved closer. The reconstructed human soldier was not supposed to have power. It was an empty display, a museum model built from old bones, old metal, and approved records. But now its helmet glowed with soft blue light. Varric heard Director Osric breathing hard behind him. This is a trick, Osric said. Human machines were made to deceive. The human voice answered from every speaker. No, this machine was made to remember. The chamber's floor opened. A beam of light rose from beneath the soldier and spread across the hall. It did not burn. It did not blind. It formed an image. Earth appeared again. But this time, it was not the Earth from schoolbooks, covered in red fire and human missiles. It was peaceful. Cities shone beside oceans. Ships from alien worlds circled the planet. Varric watched, unable to speak. The image changed. Alien leaders stood inside a human council hall. Their faces were not afraid. They were smiling. Humans were standing beside them, offering food, medicine, and star maps. Sella stepped closer. They were allies. She whispered. The human voice continued. 50,000 years ago, humanity did not start the first galactic war. Humanity ended it. A cold silence fell over the hall. Then the memory showed the war. Not humans attacking alien cities. Something else came from the dark between galaxies. Huge living ships, black mouths, worlds going silent one by one. Human fleets formed a wall between the invaders and the younger civilizations. Varric turned to Osric. The director would not look at him. The memory shifted again. Human commanders voted to seal the dark border. The cost was clear on their faces. They knew they might never return. One human admiral spoke in the recording. Let them live long enough to forget us. That will be enough. Seela's eyes filled with tears. Varric looked at the golden plaque that had called humans monsters. For the first time in his life, he felt ashamed of knowing history.
Director Osric walked forward slowly. His old hands were shaking, but his voice became sharp. "Turn off this false memory," he ordered. "This museum is protected by galactic law." The human voice did not answer him at once. Instead, the image changed again. Now the hall showed the day after humanity vanished. The dark border had been sealed. The terrible enemy was trapped outside known space. The younger civilizations survived, broken but alive. Then alien leaders gathered in secret. Varek recognized their symbols. They were the first founders of the Galactic Union. Their statues stood across every capital world. Their names were taught as heroes. But in the memory, they did not look heroic. They looked afraid. One founder spoke. "If the galaxy remembers what humans did, no one will follow us. They will wait for Earth's return. We will become caretakers, not rulers." Another answered, "Then history must be corrected." Sela grabbed Varek's sleeve. "They changed it," she whispered. Varek could not deny it. The memory showed records being burned, human rescue ships being renamed as warships, and human warnings being edited into threats. Museums were planned, schools were rewritten, children were taught that humanity had destroyed itself. Osric suddenly shouted, "Enough!" His shout echoed through the hall. Everyone turned toward him. For one terrible moment, Varek understood. Osric was not shocked. He was scared, not of humans, not of war. He was scared because he had always known part of the truth. The human voice finally spoke again. "Director Osric, your family guarded this lie for 11 generations." Osric's face collapsed. Guards lowered their weapons. Across the museum, parents, students, teachers, and visitors stared at the old director as if he had become a stranger. Outside, the human fleet remained silent above the city. No missiles, no threats, only proof. Sela looked up at the human soldier with trembling eyes. "If they saved us," she asked, "why did they come back now?" The lights dimmed. A new image appeared. The dark border was cracking. The image of the dark border filled the entire museum hall. It was not a wall of stone or metal. It looked like a wound in space, stretched across the edge of the galaxy. Blue human symbols burned along it like quiet stars. For 50,000 years, those symbols had held something back. Now they were fading. A child began to cry. No one told him to be quiet. The human voice spoke again, calm but heavy. The seal was never permanent. Humanity knew it would fail one day. The memory showed human ships on the other side of the border, trapped in darkness. They were not dead. They had been standing guard beyond known space for thousands of generations. Their cities were inside moving fleets. Their children were born under artificial suns. Their graves floated beside engines that never stopped running. Varek felt his throat tighten. The galaxy had called them extinct, but humanity had been awake all this time, not hiding, holding the door shut. Sela looked at the screen with wide eyes. "They stayed out there for us?" No one answered. Then the image showed the thing beyond the border. It had no clear shape. It moved like smoke, but its shadow swallowed stars. Around it were the empty shells of ships from ancient races that had never reached the galaxy. The old records had named it many things: the Eater, the Silence, the Hunger Between Galaxies. Director Osric sank to his knees. "All this time," he whispered, "we built statues to ourselves." The human voice continued. "We returned because the lie no longer matters. Survival does." Across the capital city, every public screen showed the same memory. Billions watched the truth at once. Varek looked at the students around him. They were afraid, but their fear had changed. It was no longer fear of humans. It was fear of what humans had been fighting alone. Then the museum doors opened. A real human officer stepped inside, helmet under one arm. She looked at the broken exhibit, then at the children. "We need witnesses," she said. "Not soldiers, witnesses." The human officer did not look like a monster. That was the first thought that entered Varek's mind. She was tall, tired, and calm. Her dark uniform had no bright medals, no golden marks of conquest. Only one small symbol rested on her chest, Earth, circled by 3 thin lines, the same symbol the museum had called a war mark. Sela stepped behind Varek, but she did not hide completely. The officer noticed her. "What is your name?" the human asked. "Sela," the child whispered. The officer gave a small nod. "Sela, do you know why we opened the museum first?" Sela shook her head. "Because lies are strongest where children learn them." No one in the hall spoke. The officer walked toward the human exhibit. She looked at the fake soldier behind the glass, at the golden plaque that had accused her species of madness and violence. Her face did not show anger. That made Varek feel worse. Anger would have been easier to understand. Instead, she looked sad. Director Osric still knelt on the floor. "What will you do to us?" he asked. The officer turned to him. "Nothing today." Osric blinked, confused. "Truth first," she said. "Judgment later. Survival before both." Then she raised her hand. A new projection appeared above the hall. It showed the dark border cracking faster. Human ships were already moving toward it, forming long defensive lines. But the lines were thin. Too thin. "Our fleet can slow it," the officer said, "but not alone." Varek looked around the museum. Teachers, guards, children, parents, all of them were watching history die and return at the same time. The officer faced them. "We do not need your worship. We do not need your apology today. We need your eyes. Tell every world what you saw here." Sela slowly stepped forward. "I will tell them," she said. Then another child followed, then a teacher, then Varek. Outside, the human ships turned toward the dark edge of space. And for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy followed humanity willingly.